So they're trying to show you a representation of our lymph vessels in relationship to our blood vessels. Okay? So what they're trying to get you to recognize, and once again, we'll go back to our trusted picture that I've drawn quite a bit, where I've got my tissues, I've got my cells. All right, so everybody, right, I'm sure y'all are familiar with that. And then I would show a capillary bed with my arterial side, my venous side. Now, looking at this picture right here, do you notice where the lymph vessels are trying to begin? Because this is where they begin.
The capillary.
At the area of my capillary beds. So, when we look at the lymph system, because they tried to show in the video,
lymphatic vessels recycle excess tissue fluid that accumulates in the interstitium as a result of normal capillary leakage. The walls of the lymphatic vessels,
right there, they're showing you the lymph vessel, meaning this is once again vascular. Okay? So it's trying to show you that the lymph vessels begin at the area with my capillaries. So this tells me, once again, that it is involved with extracellular fluid. Now remember, my lymph system begins here. My blood vessels ended. Is everybody with me? So, what we're going to find in these lymph vessels, you're going to find little flaps. And guess what those flaps do?
Do they bring in things?
They're going to allow for that fluid that's in there, that extracellular fluid, to enter. So, when they're showing this lymph vessel right here, note how they're going to show the flow of the fluid.
act as one-way valves, only letting fluid enter.
They only let fluid enter. So if this is the point where my lymphatic system begins, but if I look at my picture, where does it end? Do what wrong? It ends at a very big vein, the thoracic duct. So what does that tell me about where that lymph fluid goes back to?
The right atrium.
Goes back to my right atria. What? Why would something that's picking up fluid at that tissue level, which our lymph system does what for our bodies? It helps cleanse. Now, she mentioned bacteria. Yes, that's one of the things. But this system deals with all foreign particles. Okay, is everybody with me? Now, on its way from this area of the capillary bed where we have our lymphatic capillaries, they will begin to meet larger vessels, our lymphatic vessels. And then along their route is the lymph nodes. What do you know about a lymph node? What do?
They swell
Why?
when you have an infection.
But why?
Are they producing?
What?
Or are they producing like lymph nodes?
Sort of, kind of, yes. Okay. But let's say we got sick. Oh, you know, my throat hurts. Whatever the case might be. And then we're like, oh, well, you know, my lymph nodes feel a little swollen. I wonder why. I got to think about that for a second. Do you guys remember in our endocrine system? Well, first of all, let's think about the blood, all right, the marrow, where we produce cells. Do you remember that we produced a T cell, a T lymphocyte? Okay. And where did that T cell have to go? Where? But where did it go first? After we produced it in the blood marrow, do you happen to remember what endocrine gland?
The thyroid.
The parathyroid? The thyroid. Thymus? Do you guys remember that, like in children, it's really huge, but as adults, it begins to shrink? So, in early life, from infancy forward, we're producing a lot of those T cells because we need those T cells to go to the thymus gland, get exposed to that hormone, produce that T cell, and guess where the T cell goes now? Gabrielle? Lymph node. B cells, do you remember those? Another type of lymphocyte. They get produced as needed. Guess what happens when that lymph node swells? It's helping produce, or those B cells are actually replicating so that we can fight whatever's trying to invade us. So they're actually swelling from duplicating or creating more B cells, which is kind of cool. So let's check this again.
Lymphatic vessels recycle excess tissue fluid that accumulates in the interstitium as a result of normal capillary leakage. The walls of the lymphatic vessels act as one-way valves, only letting fluid enter. Once in the vessels, the lymph is advanced toward the systemic circulation.
It advances toward systemic circulation, that blood vessel that's going to lead to the heart. Because once the blood goes to the heart, to that right atrium, it's going to enter the circuit for the lungs and come back to the left atrium, go to the left ventricle, leave by way of the aorta, and by way of the aorta, what's the first organ system it hits once it descends? Alan? The kidneys. And we associate the kidneys with doing what in our bodies? Filtration. So anything that that fluid could have picked up, hopefully could get to the kidneys and even get better cleansing to return back to the heart or either out of the body. Is that not cool? Have you ever thought about this for your immune system? No? But that's okay. All right? So, watch what they're showing take place at the lymph node. First of all, they're showing that there is only one-way movement. So that lymph fluid that got picked up at the tissues, it will only flow one direction into the lymph node. And then if you notice, it kind of showed little prickly cells or prickly stuff kind of showing up in the lymph node, and then it going back out. Now, something else to note. There are multiple entries into the lymph node, but only one exit. All right, so watch what happens to the lymph flowing in and these little particles getting left behind, the little foreign substances.
Along the way, the lymph is filtered through several lymph nodes where it is inspected for foreign substances.
You see what happened? The foreign substance was hopefully getting taken care of in the lymph
On reaching
node.
the thoracic duct, the lymph re-enters circulation.
Reaches the thoracic duct. That's the only entrance into the blood vessels. But along the way, we're going to encounter tons of lymph nodes and other areas for the cleansing of this fluid. The lymph nodes are major in cleansing this fluid. And that was pretty much the end. So, this is the system that we're going to be looking at for today. Our lymphatic and immune systems. Note it's telling us lymphatic and immune. They're not the same. A lot of people simply think just immune system. The immune system has several different mechanisms by which it works. And when we have to make it be specific is when we really call it immunity. The other parts are immunity, okay? But when it becomes specific, it gets very detailed in doing that. So when we look at what's involved, we've definitely got our thymus gland, which they're showing a real good representation here of how that thymus gland involutes. As a child, as a baby, the majority of the chest cavity is covered with this thymus gland because this is the time that you are building your immunity. You're getting the vaccines. You're being exposed to other factors or other particles and pieces that would be considered foreign. And the body wants to build up that resistance. And the thymus gland is very important for doing that, those T cells. Our tonsils, our adenoids, our lymph nodes are very well vascularized. Their structure contains a lot of reticular fibers.